Hi, this is Gary Cato with Project SOS, and I'm very proud to sponsor this episode of Salute. We hope you enjoy it.
Hello, welcome to Central Florida Salute YouTube. We're here in Oklahoma at the Eagles 4273, and I have a special guest today who is a retired Major General, 2-star, and he is highly decorated Dave Coffman. And Dave, I want to welcome you to the Central Florida and to our Eagles. We're going to get to meet some of them later. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're originally Eustis?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Eustis, Florida, here in Lake County. Went to public schools there, kindergarten through 12th grade. Graduated from Eustis in 1981 and went off to college, so left 40 years ago. Went to Duke University on ROTC scholarship, and that's how I started my military life.
Okay. You were deployed several places. I was reading about you, your Squadron of the Year with your helicopters, your chopper squadron. And you have a pair of Bronze Stars, I understand.
Yeah. So my first 20 years in the Marine Corps was in Marine helicopter aviation, basically, more or less a standard route. Did it all over the world on ships and ashore, and mastering an airplane and maintenance and the kind of things you do as a career naval aviator. So I was single for most of that. So it was, as I describe it and told you in the prep, that's kind of the glory days. It just doesn't get much better than that. I didn't have a purposeful approach to being an aviator, frankly, even to being a Marine. Just kind of matched together a chance to go to college with a scholarship, a Marine option. Really loved the ROTC program, loved my time at Duke. The summer experiences, found out that I was physically qualified and they were looking for aviation candidates, so did the aviation route, kind of fell into helicopters, got one that worked for me, CH-46 helicopters that I've spent thousands of hours in, and had the privilege of, like I said, learning them and flying them and teaching them all over the world. My helicopter aviation experience culminated, as you mentioned there, with command of a helicopter squadron, HMM 161.
Yeah, 2,000 plus Marines and Sailor Force.
So 161, the squadron, yeah, we had the Bronze Star work. I was already a senior officer, basically Lieutenant Colonel, but the 03, the invasion of Iraq, if you will, I was on staff, participated then. And then the next year, our squadron, when the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force from California went back into Anbar Province, went back over. And partly because I had been the OPSO for the group previous year that was supplying the helicopters, I was well known to my boss. And this is an interesting day. You know, your experience in combat or in the service, as all your committee and your folks here know, civilians, and no insult intended, but they tend to look at it, you know, and I was a political science, history kind of guy. You look at it backwards. So you look back at it and say, oh, well, that's happened, this happened, this happened, then we had this big fight. Well, as your folks know, if you're in it, you're not looking backwards. You're looking forward with no idea what's going to happen. So I was talking to some folks this morning that got somebody in Germany that's in uniform. Well, that doesn't sound like a whole, that may not sound like a whole lot to somebody 10 years from now looking back on this day, or it might be an amazing period in history or in her personal life. So many times in my experience in the Marine Corps, it's just hard, I hope you understand what I'm trying to say, it's just hard to explain that. I can remember being standing at the ramp on a ship, and I sent one, this is in the invasion in 03, I sent one Marine back instead of getting on the helicopter because I said, you're not ready to go ashore. I mean, they just were not mentally, I said,
Prepared.
yeah, you're not ready. I said, we'll take you in tomorrow. We were going back and forth to the ship. And then I learned a lot of that watching. I was in the Philippines during Desert Storm, didn't go to Desert Storm, but there are lots of stories, this is, in my time, same thing. People had no idea what was going to happen. We were prepared for thousands and thousands of Americans to be killed. So when you look back, you see it really clearly, but when you're living it, you don't. So for us, my culminating combat experience was as a squadron did other combat work as a colonel MEU commander, and again in the invasion. But that was really the highlight of that was my biggest contribution to our national defense, was to take a helicopter squadron, and the decision was made that we were the most of the wing was going to be at Al Assad, which is a base further into the desert. But in order to improve response time, we were going to put one 46 squadron, my helicopters, and one attack helicopter squadron to escort them in a place called Taqadum, which was right smack between Fallujah and Ramadi, in the heart, a few miles off the Euphrates River, in the heart of the Sunni triangle. So again, looking back on it, okay, that's just the way it goes. But we had to tell our people and their wives and their mothers, your guys are not going to al-Assad. First, they're going to Iraq. Okay, I'm scared. Yeah. They're not going to al-Assad, the big base with all the. Where are they going? They're going to this little taken over base. There's going to be 2 squadrons there, and they're going to be flying in the middle of all this mess. So it was the ultimate challenge for leadership and for work. And like I hinted at, we got the nod because the group commander's confidence in me and the squadron said I said one squadron has got to take this mission and sit in the middle of this crap and be prepared 24 hours a day to go pick up wounded soldiers and Marines, which was our mission. It's one of the greatest and sweetest missions you can ever get in your life, to do casualty evacuation. We were not equipped for it. We're not Army medevac with a cross on the side. We're Marine tactical helicopters with 50 cals on the side. And we were better equipped for it in that way, because the cross didn't mean anything to the enemy, and we were regularly ambushed. And in fact, when we got there, again, sorry Army aviators, but they had the wrong picture. But we relieved an Army unit there, and they had a picture of trying to portray a big CH-47 and 46, and telling the bad guys, saying, shoot at these guys, shoot at these guys. They're carrying casualties, and they don't shoot back. Well, I'm pleased to report that in my 6 months training, we put particular emphasis on taking everybody to the fight, doing what we're asked to do, and bring everyone home. So we shot back, and my 50 cal gunners were experts at returning fire. And for the folks watching the show or here that know anything about calibers, they fire with 7.62, we answer with 50 caliber, so we win. So you talk with the 7.62, I talk with, and the guys always like to say, why not give them a can? Can's 100. So you want to give me 6 or 7.62, I'll just push these butterflies down until you shut up. So we were very effective, got ambushed. I think we've recorded close to 60 attacks against us while on mission, to some degree of small arms fire, RPGs. The big ones were man-pads or heat-seeking missiles would take you down, and we didn't get taken many of those. So it was I'm getting all excited, Bob, because this is a warfighting show. So this is it. I mean, this is what you do for a living. Yeah. And the privilege of taking those guys and then incorporating a bunch of Navy corpsmen and docs, because we did in-flight service, and to go, and this was our thing. We had a bell in the courtyard because they had unreliable power. Said, we'll go anywhere, anytime, in any condition to pick up an injured Marine.
Now, I just want to hold this up and correct me if I'm, this is your helicopter.
That's
there?
it, but that's me much younger than Squadron Command. I gave you that one because I want to make sure that you didn't show them this one when I'm really young.
Yeah. Well, I thought maybe this was your son or something.
That's what I used to look like before the Marine Corps got a hold of me. Yeah, so I was a young, handsome college student. The other one is probably from a captain or lieutenant captain there in the prime of flying life, living in Hawaii on the beach and flying helicopters. And I said, this life is just awful. And you get a paycheck too, so that's pretty rough. But yeah, but the Squadron Command Tour is really I said we can talk a little bit about the MEU experiences. I've done a lot of things, again, at the colonel and general level. But that's a professional and personal highlight, and any Marine officer that's commanded will tell you that, because that's the last time you know everybody. They are your family. They are your team, and you intimately know those guys and gals, and you're right on mission. You're at the tactical edge of applying your trade, so it's really a great experience.
We had a great conversation, you and Colonel Rick Basinger, myself, James Floyd, and the
Chaplain Haynes.
and at the radio station today. I want you to talk a little bit about, when you were wounded. It was very emotional to me listening to you talk on the radio about that. But I have some pictures here that will show up during the show of your family.
Yeah.
And I understand your family history. You're very proud of your dad, and you want to talk a little on that?
Yeah, sure. So back up to catch up there. So my dad was a Marine at the back end of World War II. He graduated from high school in 1945, turned 18 that fall, and joined the Marine Corps. And then he made a very critical mistake in high school. He took typing class. So he was kind of a poor old Missouri bumpkin. But he got to assignment, and they found out he could type, and he was given the MOS of admin clerk. So he was sent to Washington, D.C. to headquarters Marine Corps as an admin clerk. He said he fought the Battle of the Typewriters, his only war experience he had. And he was short-toured because, of course, the Marine Corps went from hundreds of thousands down to nothing. So he was early release, so he ended up doing a couple years. But he was very, very proud. He made corporal in that time. But the most important thing that happened was he went to Washington, and at the USO Club, he met a USO hostess who had graduated from high school in South Carolina in 1943, and like many young ladies, had moved to wartime Washington to fill secretarial pools and all the other jobs. And that, of course, was my mom. So they dated long-term, back and forth. And this is part of the story too, he actually became an aviator. So he used his GI Bill to go home to Missouri and learn how to fly, and moved to Texas as a crop duster. So my dad, and then he got out of that about marriage time, and he gave me that wise advice that every aviator knows. He said, son, there are old pilots and there are bold pilots, but there are no old bold pilots. So you got to pick your time to go. So for me, as I said, I did 20 years plus, flew some more after that, but actively flying on mission for those first 20 years, yeah. So they gave me a great start, and I've been talking to people this week when I've been back around home and speaking at some events, and they come up and say, I knew your dad, I knew your mom. You know, you can reflect back on your parents, what they gave you, and this carries for me all the way to my time as a general officer. And I'll just use that one as an example to close out on mom and dad. But when I was promoted to general officer, the commandant was Commandant Amos, and what he said was, he said, okay, this is a completely separate career. Forget it, in a way, forget everything you've ever done. We don't care. We got you now for this job, and it's different than, you have no idea how different it is from all those great things you did as a colonel, lieutenant colonel. And one of the things he told us, he said, I want you to think about general officers should be grateful, gracious, and patient. This is what I want you to show everyone you come in contact with: grateful, gracious, and patient. Now, most of us that did that business, so for me, I said grateful, well, that's my mom. My mom lying in her bed, 3 years bedridden, is thanking her caregivers for, oh, I hate to bother you, but could you, grateful. My mom taught me to treat everyone with dignity and respect.
That generation was...
And these are the greatest generation. So they're born with no electricity and plumbing, grew up poor, lived through the Depression, served in the war. And then my dad was the gracious one. So my dad, when finally he was trained as an aeronautical engineer, came to Florida when Martin Company opened in Orlando. That's got him to Florida, but moved to sales where he flourished. Because he's a complete extrovert, he needed people.
Yeah.
And his graciousness, as people have told me the rest of my life, was that he can interact warmly with anybody, any rank, any station, any deal, and win them over with humor and good grace. So I got gratefulness and I got graciousness, and I'm sorry to report I didn't get patience from anybody. And what we found as general officers was that was the hardest one, because you actually are rewarded as a lieutenant colonel and commander and staff officer for your impatience. So we weren't Squadron of the Year because I was a patient, quiet squadron commander. I was not able to do 2 MEU deployments and take 2,500 guys halfway around the world across a period of 3 years and bring every one of them back by being a patient, quiet, colonel.
Yeah.
So my view, and I taught lieutenant colonels and colonels that later, and said, be who you are. Be who you are. Your mom and daddy gave it to you, your town gave it to you, your coaches and mentors gave it to you. And this is what I'm going to do now as I teach leadership across all fields and all walks of life. Veterans already know all about this, but be who you are, but you got to get it done. So I was always an overly aggressive, kind of in-your-face guy. How do you backstop that? You backstop that with what I told you about mom and dad. So you can get out of your Marines. I could get out of that squadron what we thought was impossible, because as he sees the farthest, he has the most faith, Walt Whitman wrote, because I knew what we could do with that squadron. I could get out of my MEU, and then, so you can be rough, you can be intense, you can be mission-oriented, you can be passionate, if the Marines know you really that you're doing it for all the right reasons.
Yeah.
So for 34 years, Marines that worked for me forgave me all my faults, and I got a lot of them, forgave me all my faults. And I think the reason is because they could see through to my heart and know this guy's tactically competent, and boy, he wants to win.
How many-
We're going to go, we're going to do what we're asked to do, and we're all going to come back.
How many
Let's go.
deployments did you have?
Oh, I guess, I don't know, I lost track. 7 or 8 that were rated, for a star on your ribbon. Yeah, I think 7, 8 that were long deployments of 6, or 3 months or more, 4 months or more. Every type did, out of Hawaii, did what they called unit deployment. You'd fly over to Okinawa and base out of Japan, pick up the helicopters there, work up and down the Western Pacific. Ship deployments for the Marine Expeditionary Units on staff and the squadron, and then again, that naval work culminated as a MEU commander, as a colonel, where I was the colonel for 2,500 Marines embarked on 3 ships to go on deployments. Yeah. And then it kind of gets less fun. So that was my last good job, kind of, sort of. I had a couple of decent jobs as a general, but I didn't get to the show. I didn't get really high quality work. I had a couple of commanding general jobs, so you're in command, but again, you're not in the way where you can go out the flight line and put your hand on Corporal Herrera as he's fixing the crap out of that that rotor blade or whatever. Not in that way. And I want to tell you, and your viewers, most of them which are vets, are familiar with this anyway. There's nothing better in life. Some of the greatest days of my life. I love to do functional check flights on the helicopters when they do the work, and then you got to be the guy to see if it's actually going to work again. Okay, here we go. We're going to try and hover this thing. Hope it works. Nothing funner than working with those mechs and techs and crew chiefs and getting those planes going again and learning about, okay, why isn't this thing working? And then, as I said, the best in life is to get in that machine and then go do what you were trained to do. And even better, if at the other end you know that there's a Marine or a soldier that needs to get ricky-tick, as the vets, which Vietnam guys would say, ricky-tick to the hospital to save life or limb.
Because I just met you actually today. We talked a little bit on the phone. But I was moved at the radio station today. It's been in the back of my mind. You're one generation. I'm a different generation. Yeah. I'm from Vietnam. You're Iraq, and more modern day. But you got a Purple Heart, and you were talking about it.
Yeah.
And it brought back some thoughts to me about. March 29th is Vietnam Veterans Remembrance Day. I want to talk a little bit about a good friend that I lost recently, who I worked a lot with in the veterans community, and someone else that has moved up the ladder and is now the treasurer for the Vietnam Veterans of America. But when you were talking, and you talked about when you got wounded.
Yeah, let me catch up on that, and then you can come back in with your friends.
So you're acting like a general now.
Yeah. So
Nice show,
in that
brother.
squadron deployment, we were really smashing it, doing a great job. But it was a mixed battlefield. So we said if we call it medium threat. There's medium threat everywhere. In other words, it's a hybrid war. There's not a line. We're in counterinsurgency. And depending on how well you know your Iraq war history, we went over there in February, March of 2004. In 2 months, it did what we now call Fallujah 1. And there was also a lesser-known Battle of Ramadi. Remember, we're between these two cities, where we lost a lot of Marines and a lot of blood in Ramadi in the early days of May 2004. You may recall that Fallujah 1 was a bust. So the Marines said, really? They'd hung the guys on the bridge, the contractors, and the Marines said, okay, we can do this. You want to do this? And they said, do it. 3 days in, they said, don't do it. Casualties were mounting. It was a mess on all sides. We didn't have enough force to do it right. Anybody sound familiar to anybody? And they said, pull out. So we pulled back out. So the bulk of my time with my squadron was in that next fall. We went back into Fallujah 2, took the whole thing. But basically in the middle, we had surrendered Fallujah to Zarqawi and the insurgents. So it was what we called a black zone. So they had free reign in Fallujah, and what they would do is come out from Fallujah in trucks and with whatever they had, take pot shots at helicopters, to try and take over intersections. It was, again, counterinsurgency work. So that was the kind of environment we're in. Like I said, so we took probably, I think we logged about 60 times that our aircraft were hit by small arms fire, RPGs, or other stuff. None of them got knocked down during that time. A couple of Cobras, so it was a medium threat. It was a hostile environment. We were ready for that and trained for it. I think I was telling y'all today at the radio station, when you take young people to the show, they signed up for this too. So if you did it right, they're like, wow, this is the real stuff. I mean, they're excited. They're like, let's go. I want to be. They're not fighting to get off the schedule. They're fighting to get on it. But I had to get onto the guys because they'd come back. I remember one day a helicopter came in, they'd got shot. The fuel cell was leaked. We had to change the whole fuel cell. They got shot in the fuel cell. They're streaming fuel. They were so excited. It's like, guys, the point is not to get shot at. The point is not to get shot at. The point is to not get shot at. So I'd say that's not what we're here to do. So the idea is I want to hear about an uneventful mission. We took off. We went and got the guy. We took him to the hospital. We came back. We did some of those too. But the irony, which is why in all my kind of personal biographies I write it up, that I was injured ironically while flying a casualty evacuation mission. And even more ironically to my guys, because I did what I told them not to do. I got myself shot. So on July the 4th in the U.S., July the 5th, 2004 in Iraq, I was flying a routine CASEVAC, was taking a Marine that had a spleen problem from Hakatam, where we live, to the hospital in Baghdad called Cash South. So it was a routine mission. And things had actually been kind of quiet a couple of weeks before that. So, but periodically, and again, we didn't own the ground. So Zarqawi's guys could really go wherever they wanted. So you just had to be on the lookout. Somebody's going to pot shot you. Here comes some spray of AK-47. And then sometimes they would do a little better and have a better organized helo ambush with RPGs, and then the killer would be IR manpad that would actually could actually take you out, SA-16, or a weapon that could actually down your helicopter. So we flew all low-level tactics. So on July the 5th, routine mission in the morning, my co-pilot and I, away we go, and then nobody saw it, came from nowhere, and we were just swamped with AK-47, small arms fire. There were RPGs. The RPGs are a non-guided, it's a rocket. So the sound is, if they hit you, they can take you out. So we had a Cobra, got hit in the engine. If they hit your engine or a vital part, it can take you out. But they're very hard to aim and use effectively. So what you tend to do is you'll hear RPG will burst outside the helicopter, and then it sounds like rocks hitting the side. Yeah. So the crew chief said, oh yeah, there was RPG too, because I heard the rocks hitting. They said, I heard the rocks hitting the side of the plane, and then no man pads. We probably, in a way, mismanaged it. So I felt kaboom right here. And like I got hit with a baseball bat, and I thought, well, there we go, we're under fire. And then, of course, you hear it, which made me assume they were shooting from here. What really happened is one of the first, probably the first round, came through the cockpit with what you call a bullet bouncer, hit me in my armor plating and fragged up into my face and compound fractured this jaw and put shrapnel in some other places. Totally conscious where it was going. I was flying. And And again, and then took some sprays of this, RPGs, and then, I mean, this long story that I'll put in the book as far as all the details, because it's never that simple. We think the second round, about 15 rounds, I think, went into the helicopter. We think the second round went into the overhead console. It took out all of our internal and external comm. So we can't talk to anybody but screaming, no radio, no comm. So we turn away. I turn the wrong way because I think they're on the right. So, and then we head back to Tecum. The old helicopters that you show, that I worked on these a long time. In fact, I wrote an article in 1994 in the Marine Corps Gazette to explain to the Marine Corps what they needed to do to keep those aircraft viable. Does this sound familiar to any old guys? Keep this aircraft viable for another 10 years or so, because, along about 2004, 2005, we might need them. Now, I didn't do that haphazardly. I knew that in 2004, 2005, I'd be a lieutenant colonel. If I got everything I wanted in life, I'd be a squadron commander, and I needed the best helicopter I could get. They weren't quite there, but we did the best we could. But they could really take a licking and keep on going. So we flew back, returned to the base. On the way back, I handed it off to my co-pilot. He finished the flight, landed the plane, got the DFC for his airmanship of getting us the rest of the way home. Again, conscious the whole time, and the crew chief came up, figured out I was shot, wrapped my head, and I said, yeah, I'm bleeding a little bit here. Walked off the plane into Tecum Aid Station, the same place we delivered so many folks. So the irony is we'd moved hundreds of casualties, and then I did the same trip. So I became one. I was the worst casualty we had. I was really, my co-pilot took a little bit of glass in the plexiglass in the face, but everybody else was on scene, and I had to do the full ride. In Baghdad, they tricked me, so my OPSO was waiting. So when we came back to Tecum, they were already ready. I went into Tecum, they morphined me up and labeled me up and said, we got to take you straight to the hospital in Baghdad. So my own crew, my own guys, so they shut down the smoking plane, and the OPSO showed up with 2 more, and they took me straight to Baghdad, sitting up in the back, wondering how bad this was. I've been kind of a low injury, healthy guy, so you don't know this stuff till it happens.
Yeah, really.
And so I'm like, I said, well, it must be a broken jaw. I said, I wonder if maybe they just they wrap your head with this stuff. I said, I should be back this afternoon. I'm thinking this doesn't feel that bad. It's swelling up a little bit. Well, I got to Baghdad. A great Army surgeon at Baghdad caught me. I walked in there too, and my flight doc missed the airplane, by the way. He was going to come with us. He was running around, and then off. The OPSO wasn't waiting for him. Off we went. So he called ahead. He called the Baghdad hospital and said, hey, let him know. Lieutenant Colonel, now I told you how I was as Lieutenant Colonel and Colonel. He said, let them know they better get ready. In about 25 minutes, Lieutenant Colonel Coffman's going to walk into the gas south for some treatment. He's got a broken jaw. So I walked in. The Army doc worked on me for about 8 hours, picking out shrapnel and wiring up. But he tricked me bad. Because Bob, what he said, he said, can you lay back? I need to look at this. I said, well, I said, I'm having trouble breathing, because it's really starting to swell up then. I said, it's very uncomfortable for me to sit back. He said, just lay back a minute. He says, believe me, it'll be easy. You won't remember a thing. Famous last words. Because 5 days later, I woke up in Bethesda with a titanium plate in my jaw, thinking I was in Baghdad. What's your name? Lieutenant Colonel. It's wired tight. Lieutenant Colonel. What day is it? I have no idea. Where are you? Baghdad. Ha, ha, ha. No, Baghdad, ha, ha, ha. So that started my journey that we had sent hundreds of Marines and soldiers through. I had been around, of course, wounded Marines and others before. I had seen death in aviation mishaps, unfortunately, up close and personal. I'd pulled the Marine's body out of a crashed helicopter, had been on scene, done vet. So I'd been around that issue, but not myself, and it's life-changing. And I don't try to make too much of it. I'm talk about it as part of my shtick as a retired guy and a Purple Heart wearer. But very quickly, I became kind of a high-paid dental patient. They gave me all this is a time of polytrauma, So, I mean, we were bringing guys with missing legs and arms and in all kinds of terrible shape, mostly from IEDs and getting blown up. And the other thing about an AK-47 shot is it's clean. So in the ward when I was at Bethesda, many rooms were marked with contaminated because they had dirty bombs. And a lot of Marines sitting for weeks trying to fight the infection so they could go in and work. Me, in, out, get the job, you're on your way. Now, that's easy to say. Anybody, every veteran, but particularly wounded veteran, I'm on now an 18-year journey of recovering, and I'll never be fully recovered because I have my handicaps too, from that Purple Heart and that injury. When I got back to the States, I saw again the rest of the model. A quick shout out to then the commandant was Commandant Hagee, and I don't know her real well, but wives are pretty amazing people. And what happened is in '03, when we started getting Marines hurt, she went over to see him at Bethesda, we called it Bethesda, then Walter Reed and Bethesda National, they were split still, there in Washington, Maryland. She went over to see him and she went home, and the word is she chewed the commandant's butt. She said, pitiful, F. She said, their families are showing up, nobody's meeting them, we're not taking care of our Marines. And he sprung into action, and it still wasn't great, but it got better and better. As the time I was there in '04, we were still terrible at polytrauma, but we got much better at doing what Marines are supposed to do of taking care of their own, including their families and their loved ones. And the heroes in my book, Bob, which is where you wanted me to go on this, the heroes in this, and I have that note on this card right here. I have vowed since my injury to never speak about veterans without specifically calling out the Vietnam vets. Because for all my deployments, Squadron and MEU, for my personal injury, from my time at Bethesda, recovering in San Diego, all the follow-up work I did, and all the work I've done with wounded warriors in the 15 years since, the Vietnam vets have shown up, and I just read it in their magazine, it's their mission. As a mission, never again will someone show up back in this country and not be great.
Stretch, I got to tell you, you touched me with that when we were talking before. And that's why I want to kind of go, if you'd let me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to talk a little bit about a lady that I know and a gentleman, a Vietnam veteran that I knew, who worked with me on a lot of projects. And one of the things we used to do was we brought in the very first Vietnam veterans traveling wall into the state of Connecticut. We worked together on that for 2 years, me and Al Philibert. And we had like 100,000 people in the field. There was nothing there. But our company at the time was Northeast Utilities, put out $10,000, and this 4-day event was all over the place. I mean, it was amazing. And that guy he just died. He was a friend of mine, a very good buddy. We did a lot together. And I will show you this photograph. This is Al Philibert, and this is Linda Schwartz. Linda Schwartz was a commissioner for Veterans Affairs in the state of Connecticut, also ran Rocky Hill Veterans Home and Hospital. She was a Vietnam nurse. She was coming home from Vietnam. Something happened to the plane where the roof came open, the door flew open or something, but it lost compression. She didn't know where she was when she came home. She didn't even recognize her own daughter. But thanks to the VA and her personal strength, she moved on. And this picture was taken in 1998. I look a little younger then. But anyway, I lost contact with Linda. She was, like I said, ran Rocky Hill Veterans Home and Hospital. And there's this picture here is Gen chairs. That we raised $1,000 per chair. We sold T-shirts. We did everything. And that was my buddy Al. Al and I worked together for a lot of years. He just recently passed away. And, March 29th is Vietnam Veterans Remembrance Day. And I remember not just the guys I went to school with and died, but in the many years since I came home, the ones I'm losing. The Agent Orange or what have you. And but I wanted to share with you because that lady, that was taken in 1998. I had lost contact with her, and I wanted to see her again because when I was up at Rocky Hill Veterans Home and Hospital, she gave me this challenge coin. It's a coin. It says serving those who served. She ran Rocky Hill Veterans Home and Hospital, which was a state-run facility. When I left and she left, she gave me this. Now, this is John Leviton, Vietnam veteran, Medal of Honor winner. And this was one of 5,000 sketches. That's all they made. This was given to me, as a parting gift.
Yeah.
But when I think of Vietnam Veterans Remembrance Day, there's a lot of them I remember, men and women.
The other thing that's happening is, I've also had the privilege of speaking to World War II era guys, the greatest generation, properly called so. And we talked about it with my mom and dad, who weren't veterans of the war, but veterans of that time. Spoke, for example, at 5th Marine Division reunion on behalf of the Commandant. I can remember, somebody mentioned this morning we were talking. I can remember we were going on a bus for something, but they're at the little convention or their little reunion thing. And I was sitting there with 4 guys that had been on Iwo Jima. And they were just regular old dudes, and I, some of them will wear a hat, but a lot of them, you got to find that out privately. And I'm thinking everyone should be snapping, and then we just kind of interacted, and I had to just kind of hold it in because I wanted to tell everybody, get out of the way. This is not some old man that you can talk to like that.
That's why we do salute. Be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because we sit down, guys like yourself, 2-star general, but I also sit down with the guy that's sitting at the bar stool next to me.
That's the ones you want,
Bob.
Bob.
A tunnel rat.
That's the ones you want. That's what I'm talking about. This guy, I was a sergeant. It's like, are you kidding me? So what I was getting to is, we know we're losing those guys. So we're fewer and fewer and fewer. And then we have our Korea guys, and then we get to, it's the next generation, And I'm just reading that again in the magazine. We got to pick it up.
I agree.
So what I want is 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, you guys are going to have done your thing. Then it's our turn. This is the way our country is supposed to work, from generation to generation. The heritage of service and the heritage of the families that support the service, the communities, your organization here with the Eagles, your committee that you're running. That's success for us. And then you tell the story about the Vietnam guy, that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy. And the gift, again, to just say that again now that I've straightened my emotion up, the gift that the Vietnam vets have given to the Iraq, Afghanistan, global war and terror, we're going to pay that forward. We're going to pay that forward. We need to be the ones insisting on seeing the broken Marine at Bethesda that doesn't want any visitors, says, oh, you're going to see these visitors. They won't leave until they come in here and talk to you. Because they're going to tell you, I've been in that bed. I had so many come to me. I told George Warmark, my Marine Corps League buddies, and I was like, I'm an introvert. I'm like, really? I want to be at my squadron. I'm stuck here in this bed. And the Marine, you say, sir, the Marine Corps League guys are here. It's like, they won't go away. He says, you have to see that. I was like, shame on me. And here they come. World War II, Korea, Vietnam vet. What were they doing? I'm like, boy, what a dummy I am. That guy is me. He's coming for me. So it's a beautiful thing when you do it. And it's part of what the work I want to do in the coming years for the rest of my life. Said what are you, like 50 years ahead of me, Bob? About 10 years, 15, 20, 30 years ahead of me. Yeah.
We're going to edit. We're going to edit some of this.
We'll edit that out. That out. Yeah. It's our turn. It's
and I preach that all the time. I tell people, join a Legion, a VFW, or
whatever works for you,
and get your kids involved too, and go to museums and do that. But anyway, I just want to finish up on my buddy Al Philibert and I. We did a lot with Rocky Hill Veterans Home and Hospital, and this is a lady, Linda Schwartz, who I mentioned before was a Vietnam veteran nurse, and she was instrumental in putting in the Women Veterans Memorial in Washington, and then she was on staff in Washington. Well, before she left, this greenhouse, this picture here, the greenhouse, this was my Uncle Ted's parting gift. When he died, he told me, Bobby, I want to do something for those, our veterans. World War II, Distinguished Service Cross on the beaches of D-Day. Never really talked much about it, but when he died, he left $130,000 to build that. And that greenhouse grows all the vegetables to feed the residents at the Rocky Hill Veterans Home and Hospital. 3/4 of what they raise goes to the homeless. So that's his legacy, and I'm so proud of it. But every generation has done its part.
Yeah.
And I had lost contact with Linda Schwartz, so I just got this magazine yesterday. This is Vietnam Veterans Magazine, and it changed at the top. And there she is.
There she is, yeah.
You know,
Be an
I'm going to be
officer,
sending her some of these pictures now that I know where I can find her.
Yeah.
But you know, I've done about 500 shows. I've been doing this stuff for 13 years now, and it's always an honor to meet somebody like you. It's an honor to meet all these other people I have in there. There's some guys in here that you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
You know, and I want to thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Where are you going now? Now that you're happily retired and fishing a lot, I know that for a fact. I called you all weekend. I'm not available. He's out fishing. But what are your plans now?
Yeah, so right now we're kind of splitting time between Lake County and Wilmington, North Carolina. So my wife, my boss, Sink Pack House, I thought we were going to be Florida and go the other way, Snowbird, but she dropped the veto. So she's supporting her aging parents are aging in place there in their longtime home in Wilmington. So we started there. Again, I retired fall of 19, and coming this way. I was coming this way to see my mom, as I mentioned earlier, was in her last years. So we've lost mom now. So we're still kind of doing the split, but I'm basing my new professional life, if you will, my speaking, writing, the things that I'm going to do here back at home is a very conscious choice. So Florida resident and based out of here. And then my expectation is it'll be increasingly more down here, but kind of doing stuff at both, like so many other people, doing stuff kind of at both ends of that. Mm-hmm. So I was telling somebody this week, come see me, because they've laughed at me for saying it so much. I think last night at an event, but 1502 Fonstock is a little house in Eustis that my dad and mom built in late 1970s, and it's been on my driver's license for 40-something years. So it's still on there because I just bought the house from my brother and sister. So I'm back in Eustis as far as base of operations. And like we were talking about earlier today, Bob, I've also made a conscious choice. I'm not denigrating the guys who do different, but I've kind of got to a point as I reached my retirement in the last few jobs, thinking, you know, I'm blessed because everything I wanted in life I've kind of already got.
Yeah.
So I have the means to do what I want to do. I've made a conscious choice that for right now, I'm not working for anybody. I'm not going back in defense contracting business or think tank world or what have you. And I want to just give back in my own way. I want to teach and write and about my experiences like you're helping me with today to recount those kind of things and contribute back. So.
Well, let me say, I think we're about time we've wrapped up.
Yeah.
But it's been an honor and a real pleasure to meet you. You know, I mean, the only general I ever met one time, he rolled the window down and told me, "Hey, Airman, get your hands out of your pocket." So, you know.
Yeah. Well, can I sneak in one other thing?
Sure.
Yeah, just one other theme that I always used in my Marine Corps ball speeches and that, we've covered most of this ground, but I just want to put one more kind of plug in. I always tried to give there's a lot of pessimism these days in our country. There's a lot of argument. There's a lot of dissent. There's a lot of clashes. We need to restore the harmony of the Republic. We need to get on the same team. The vets are the ones to do it. You talk about whatever area of friction you have, because listen, when you're in Taqadum fighting for your life, flying helicopters, or you're on a ship in the Gulf of Aden at 3 o'clock in the morning launching Harriers to kill bad guys in Yemen, I can tell you that at that moment, you don't care what color somebody's skin is or where they came from. You don't care at that moment about much of anything, but let's do our job and let's do it. And I got your back, and let's do it right. The vets need to be leading the way on that, and it starts in local communities where they say that's not the way Americans behave. That's not how we treat each other. It's all the things your mama taught you. Do it. But I always, through today and through all of my 40 years of being in leadership, I've always come back to a note of optimism to say we've been here before, we'll get through it again. We can move forward. And I highlight 3 groups from my experience, increasing experience, that gave me that optimism, pride, and confidence that we could get where we need to go. It was the privilege of leading so many great Marines. And I could tell you, again, we could spend hours, Bob, telling you stories about corporals and sergeants and PFCs and captains and majors and their eye-watering performance all over the world. So the Marines gave me confidence that America will last a long time, and we're going to have a great place. The second was Marine families, and I came to love Marine families. And you've got some sitting right out here watching us today with the box, families that gave the ultimate sacrifice of Gold Star family. And what I learned was there's nothing like Marine families. And I was late to marriage, I was late to family in my presentations like I did last night at a men's group. I have to confess my sins that I had no idea about family and kids and all, because I came so late to it. And had my buddies say, you have no idea, and I've learned you were right. I have no idea of the I had an idea, but not fully. I mean, and I used to write letters to because the Marines would have their babies, their wife would have their baby while they were deployed. Yeah. And I'd say, what a sacrifice. Please be assured that while you were there delivering that precious baby, he was here to make sure that baby could grow up in freedom and security. Marine families, just awesome. And that's my wife's work. Awesome. Awesome, amazing, amazing things that they could do. And then the third group is when you fly into Bangor, Maine in 04, 05, which was a point of entry for so many guys coming back and forth to Iraq and Afghanistan. And there are hundreds of people, and they just want to welcome you home. They're like, welcome back. It's a nothing. Oh, it's not a nothing. They're guys like your group. They could be at the golf course. And you know how big airplanes work. We're 3 hours late. Maybe it doesn't sound like much. It means a lot. It means a lot to a 19-year-old kid that's never been out of Oklahoma and just thought he might get killed and comes back to find he's welcomed. He's welcomed. Yeah. So there is an America. This is what you're doing with your show, Bob, with your group here. There is an America out there that loves and understands the sacrifice of the military and veterans. We just got to connect to them. Like the stories you were telling me today. We got to make them do it. We got to say, I'm sorry, maybe you didn't know that your neighbor took Iwo Jima. Yeah. Have you ever studied that? You ought to have coffee with him. Let me help you. He's going to be at breakfast this Friday. It's going to rock your world. Yeah. It's going to rock your world. So if we can keep that going with our servicemen, support them before, during, after, their families, and we can broaden that out in our communities, in our states, and in our country, then we're going to keep it going. And my wars are not, yours wasn't the last one, mine wasn't the last one, and we're finding out this week, this one ain't going to be the last one either. Yep. That's a myth. That's a myth. This world is never going to be free of conflict, and this country better always be ready to defend its honor, defend its prosperity, defend its security, and defend its freedom. And I'm very concerned, I'm optimistic, but I'm very concerned about that because we've got to teach that. Those of us who have been around the world 6 times have got to tell the rest of them, let me explain this to you. Yeah. Everything you are doing today is fragile and precious, and their son died so you can do it. Yeah,
I agree with you. You know, I was raised with the World War II generation, you know, and in fact, they built my house. If you ever go on my YouTube channel, you can see the shack I lived in. With an outhouse in the back. I tell kids I did homework by a kerosene lantern for a year or so before my parents got enough money to put electricity in. And my uncles built the house. Here's guys that went all over Africa, beaches of D-Day, they built the house. So they instilled that in me. Yeah. And I agree with you. We need to instill that into younger people. Yeah. Because when I went and did a show in Eustis, and the kid said, we asked the kid about Hitler and the World War II. And he said Hitler was in charge of Germany at the time. He had fought in World War I, which is correct, he did. And so then because of the sanctions went on, he rose to power saying, I'm going to make everything, you got to be, you know. Anyway, he says, I don't think he was a bad guy. That's what I did. My eyeballs rolled up the back of my head. I'm thinking, I did an interview with a guy named Gene Klein, a Holocaust survivor. Maybe you'd like to talk to him and see his opinion.
In the school, Bob, I've been to all those places. I got you, because you snuck that in there on me. On my journey, I've always thought every American should go to Pearl Harbor, Hiroshima, and Auschwitz. And I've been to all three. And when you pull into Pearl Harbor in a big Navy ship, many of you probably have done this, Arizona is the senior ship.
Yes.
So you render honors coming across. There's nothing sweeter. And I prepped the Marines, of course, as we left California. I said, this is going to change your life. Mm-hmm. You're going to come in here. And now they've moved Missouri there, too. So I have a great picture, I have to send it to you, of USS Boxer, the ship with my flag on it, across the channel with the Arizona Memorial and Missouri, and I call it three great ships. That's what you got to do. And then you go see what you may have to do to end it, Hiroshima. But one of the most moving experiences in my life was to go for Auschwitz tour. And if you put a few of those things together, like you're talking about with the school kids, you got to be kidding me. But we have got to open the eyes.
Yes,
we have got to open the eyes and educate correctly on what it's really about, and recognize the fragility of all the blessings we have here. So thank you so much for what you're doing with this show. It's a delight for me to be here. I'm sure we can edit it down to a quality turn and drop it on the YouTube, and I'll have all my friends and family look, and they'll tell me how young and handsome you look and how old and terrible I look.
Well, that's true. That's true. But anyway, I'd love to have you back sometime. I love talking to you. I love this conversations we had today. And, go fishing again. It took me a week to get a hold of you. He's fishing. Enjoy your retirement now. Good luck in your future endeavors. I know you'll do well. And I'm proud to have had you on my show.
Thank you, Bob.
And let's stay friends, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
We got to say goodbye, though. And I'm not sure how you're going to do it, but I know how I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
To all our veterans out there, our active military and their families, we salute you for all you do. Till next time.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Since 2009, Project SOS has assisted our veterans both overseas and here at home to overcome medical issues, homelessness, and disabilities. Initially, our efforts resulted in over 22 clinics opened in Iraq and Afghanistan. Recently, as troops have been withdrawn, we have concentrated on issues here at home. During this past year, we have been able to distribute 42 motorized wheelchairs and numerous mobility devices to our local veterans who have served in World War II and up to and including Afghanistan. We continue to offer solutions to our local homeless veterans in the Ocala National Forest and other Central Florida locations. Project SOS Support Our Soldiers needs your assistance to continue helping a growing homeless veterans population. Over-the-counter medications and personal hygiene supplies are acutely needed. Your financial aid will greatly increase the support they so desperately need.